The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar that is sponsored by Graduate Studies to talk about the ALST and EAS certification exams. This is a session that will help you with the preparation. We're pleased to have Eudora Watson here with us today to do this webinar. And what I'd like to do is just introduce her, and then I'm going to hand it over to her. Eudora Watson, writing specialist, will offer you information and materials you can use to prepare for the ALST and EAS exams. We'll review the content of the exams, compare the tasks and timeframes across exams, identify predictable elements, and review study tips. Perhaps most importantly, we will focus on the formats of the constructed response sections and the best ways to approach these important writing tasks. So again, I'd like to thank Eudora for taking time out to have this webinar today with us. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Eudora.
Oh, thanks very much, Josh. I'm very excited to be doing this webinar. I'd like to be able to reach people where they are at a time that's good for them. So I'm hoping this works for you. What I'd like to do is we'll just move slide to slide. I'll chat away. Some of you have met me before. Whoops. Thought I'd move a slide. Here we go. There we go. There's me. I always like to thank Dr. Mitchell and the staff of the College Writing Center because they're so crucial in helping education students with their writing. If you haven't taken advantage of their services, I think that you should. If you have feedback about sessions that you've had, let me know, good or bad. And also be aware that you can do online tutoring at the Writing Center. A little about myself. Some of you know that I have 2 master's degrees from Potsdam. I have MST in secondary English and also a master's degree in English that I got 10 years later. I've worked 4 years as a alternative high school teacher and 6 years as a teacher in middle school. I have some middle school rah-rah about me, so I hope that helps the seminar and keeps you interested. I always like to tell teacher educators that I really want you to have 2 hats on as you study, both as a test taker and as a test teacher. Your own preparation for these standardized exams can really help you to remember in the classroom to approach learning about standardized tests your own students will be asked to take. You're going to receive packets of exams over the next few years when you get a job. Testing is not going to go away. Perhaps it will change based on current protests, but you should, as an informed educator, be really prepared for the exams, standardized exams that you're going to be taking. I myself took standardized tests in kindergarten. That was a long time ago, but at that point the teacher had us come up to the desk individually and she said, Eudora, I'd like you to start counting. I'll tell you when to stop. That's a standardized test. And you might be doing anything from that casual kind of standardized assessment to more standardized Common Core assessment. And I want you to be not intimidated by those exams, but know how to help prepare your students. So you can be thinking, as you prepare, how to best prepare your students. Here are some study tips, just broad study tips. This is my list, come to after lots of different study and practice. Whenever you're studying, you want to tap into prior knowledge. You want to ask questions, make connections, and use repetition to reinforce what you know. So something you could be doing right now is think, what do I already know about this exam? And maybe you want to take a few notes now, and I'll give you a minute to do that. What are some questions that you have about the exam? And as we go along, what I'd like you to do is make connections between the things I'm telling you, what you already know about the exam, and also about your content knowledge. Before the test that you take or that you give your students, you should know the test. And before you take a test, you should know yourself. I'm going to talk a little bit about what those 2 things mean. Getting to know the test. I have just a simple slide, does standardized equal bad? Because so many people think standardized is just going to ruin creativity, do all these bad things. you can think that if you like, but when you go to study, I hope that you have a different thought in mind so that you have more positive study experience. And what you might think about, oh, is that try this idea. Standard equals predictable. So that there's predictable things on the exams and you can study in a way that will get good results. In any exam you approach, either for yourself or for your own students, look for predictable elements. For all the New York State teacher certification exams, you can expect defined topics, tasks, time frames, a word count for written response, and there should be a star on that one, format for the written response, and either something called objectives or performance expectations. Look for changes to previous practice. If you already know an exam, either exam you need to take or an exam your students need to take, look to see if there are changes. With the new exams, what used to be called objectives are now called performance expectations. What used to be called multiple choice is now called selected response. I see Emily has a comment. I'm not seeing all of. Okay, I'll get to you, Emily.
Okay. That is odd. Why don't you go ahead back where you were and look, and I'll come see if I can help her.
Okay, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Emily, she's gonna go pick up where she left off, and then I'm gonna come over. I think you said where you were gonna be. I'm gonna see if I can help you. I think it's something on your end.
So when we talk about the difference between objectives and performance expectations, or multiple choice is now called selected response, does that really matter? Well, it matters if this happens. If you've taken a previous test and you're looking for objectives, or you're looking at the study guide for the new test and you don't see objectives, but you knew that's what to study for, and it confuses you, then simply know that what used to be called objectives are now performance expectations, and that's the content of the exam. And when they talk in the new study guides about selected response, in the old study guides they call it multiple choice. So that kind of thing matters if it matters to the student. And that's the kind of thing I'd bring up in my 8th grade classroom if I saw any confusion on the student's part, to make sure they're oriented correctly. On the EAS and the ALST, like the multi-subjects and the CST, or CST and literacy CST, there were predictable elements. The topic, the time frame, and the tasks are all predictable. For the EAS, which is the educating all students, that is the topic. The time frame is 2¼ hours, and the tasks are selected and constructed responses. The ALST, the topic there is writing to sources, and you might have done that kind of thing in social studies class in high school, where you had primary sources and you wrote an essay based on it, and also reading. So that's the topic for the ALST, writing to sources and reading. The time frame for the ALST is 3½ hours. That's also selected and constructed responses. And note that you have 45 minutes more time to do the ALST. So you might think it's a more challenging exam, and I would agree with you. To compare that to the multi-subject CST, the current exam that students are taking if they're certified before May, the topic is knowledge specific to multiple content areas, and the time frame is 4 hours. So that was a longer exam, although the tasks were the same. They'll be selected or multiple choice and constructed responses. Some predictable details about the tasks. On the EAS exam, there are about 42 selected response questions. Now compare that to the current multiple choice or current multi-subject CST, where there are 90 questions. The written assignment word count for the EAS, there are 3 of them. They are each 150 to 200 words, and it counts for 30% of the exam. The ALST, with the 40 multiple choice questions or selected response questions, also has 3 written assignments, but notice the difference in word count. 2 of the questions, they predict that you'll answer them in 100 to 200 words, and 1 of the questions, written assignments, it's 400 to 600. So a much longer, more complex writing passage there. And the written assignment is 60% of the score on the ALST. So just looking at those things, you know that very heavily weighted, more than half of the the score for the ALST is written, how you do on the writing. So you're going to have to do a good job on the writing. The good news is that's entirely possible to do a good job on the writing. The thing that some people don't see as a challenge that I find as a challenge for students is the very short word count. On the EAS exam, the 150 to 200 words, you're going to have to be very, very precise and fit a lot of information in that 200 words. And I'm saying 200 words because you need to go for the high end of the word count. You just simply can't do it in the lower word count. So you're looking at 3 short word assignments with 200 word count. Don't think, oh, they're short. That's not a problem. Think they're short, and that's a different kind of challenge.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I think I fixed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Oh, great. Okay. You do want to manage your time. You have a set amount of time to complete the exam. The exam, as I've said, is 2 types of tasks, selected and constructed response. On the older CST exam, you were given a bulk of multiple choice questions and the constructed response appeared at the end. And then you would have to decide for yourself how you wanted to approach that. Some people would do some multiple choice first, then the constructed response, and then more multiple choice. Some people would decide, I want to be at my best when I do the constructed response, so I'm going to do that first. However, on the newer exams, New York State gives you some guidelines, and they also already mix in the selected response and the essay. So you don't need to do that. It's already there. On the ALST, they expect that will take about 210 minutes, the whole exam. And that's based on these estimates, that the 200-word responses will take up to 20 minutes. That 20 minutes tells me they expect a sophisticated, complex response in that 200 words. It needs to be very good, in other words. And you'll have one 600-word response. They're giving you up to an hour to do that. That's their estimate. I do want to tell you good news, which is that those 2 shorter word responses help build up to that 600-word response. So you should be in good shape. Do a good job with the 2 shorter ones. That will set you up to do a really nice job on the longer written response. And then there are 40 selected response items. And they expect they will take you up to 110 minutes. On the EAS, in contrast, is 135 minutes total. So a little bit shorter time. And it's based on these estimates, that your 3 200-word responses, they're saying it should take you up to 10 minutes on each. That's half the time that they expect you to do the other very short response. So these are more clear cut. They expect them to be more straightforward and not take as much time to construct. And we'll take a look at why that this probably will be true for you. And there are 42 selected response items. And they're giving you actually a little bit less time for 2 more questions. So these selected response items perhaps are less complicated than they are on the other exam. Unselected response. You probably know the answer to this question. Should you guess? Yes. Your students won't always know the answer. So I always be sure to tell students, any students, remind them that some exams you're penalized for a wrong answer, but most exams you're not, and so you might as well guess. You want to make it an educated guess, your best answer. I want you to keep in mind the constructed response tests your critical thinking and background knowledge through your reading and writing skills. Especially the ALST, it's really a reading test and a writing test. And the selected response tests your critical thinking and background knowledge through your reading skills. New York State has some advice on multiple choice. Read the passage carefully, then answer and look back only when needed. That would be not great advice on either of these exams. Or read the questions first to get an idea of what to look for, then read the passage. Or review the passage to get an overview, then answer questions by referring back to the passage. So you probably have some strategy that you yourself use. You might want to think about that for a moment. Beyond just a flat policy across the board, think about this. The longer the passage is, or the more complicated the diagram, chart, or graphics are, it's more likely that reading the question first will help you be efficient. And for every selected response, you should jot down notes, draw diagrams, do something that makes it your own. On the EAS selected response, on the sample, you're given 3 exhibits. And so just by giving you what some of the examples are, it will tell you what an exhibit means. You will get something like a class description, a brief class description of what's been going on in the class. They continually call it class descriptions in the guides. Sometimes it reads to me like a case study because it focuses on a student. You'll also see something about teacher reflection. So for instance, a teacher's journal entry about their thoughts about what's been going on in the class, and then lesson plans the teachers come up with. You're going to make judgments about what's going on in the classroom based on these exhibits. So you're looking at your professional knowledge. You'll pull together what you know about classroom behavior, classroom management, teaching. And you have a choice. You can read these passages cold. Just read them as they're presented to you first before the questions. And you can warm up as you go. Or you can read the questions first to get an idea of what you are reading for, and then read the passages. Many people, myself included, find this second method to be very successful. I'm just going to add the caveat, the little cautionary note. Just read the questions, not the answers, because you don't want to get a prejudice about what the answer might be. So just read the questions, get a sense of what you're reading for, and then go back through and read the passages. On the ALST selected response, on the sample, you're given a passage of 1,000 words, just about 1,000 words. That's a fairly long passage. On the sample, I think it's 6 paragraphs. Each question in the selected response, what we used to call multiple choice, it indicates the paragraph from which the question is taken. So it will say something like, in paragraph 8, and then quote from paragraph 8, and then ask you what that means. I'm just going to tell you, take the hint. They're giving you the paragraph numbers. So you can find them easily. So you're not spending test time looking for the paragraph that they're referring to. That means they expect that you will go back and read the paragraph to look for the answer. And in fact, to do well on this exam, you really need to go back, find the paragraph, even if you think you know it well, even if you think you know the answer, reread the paragraph before you answer the question. And that, I would tell my 8th graders, is making use of all the resources that are given to you. So those paragraph numbers are a resource. Make good use of them. Reading really is a skill. It requires practice, and you can improve your reading ability with effort. We all start at different places with reading. Some people are fast readers. Some people have been reading since they were in kindergarten. Some people struggle with reading. You need to be able to read with understanding, and we can all improve our ability to read with understanding. And I want to remind those of you who are eligible for an accommodation, you should request it. There's no reason not to. And these are 2 great exams, especially the ALST, to use your accommodation if it's available to you. For the multiple choice or the selected response, be very methodical, verify your answers, refer to the text, take notes, jot down whatever helps you keep track of things or sort them out. Get a sense of how long it takes you, and stay engaged with the exam. What are your strategies for staying engaged with the exam? And I'm going to give you a minute to write some things down, because I think this is an essential thing to think about. Or maybe a half a minute. A minute's a long time, as you'll find in the classroom. Oh, let me back up, because I thought I had a... Some strategies for staying engaged are the kind of thing that will keep you alert. It's also the kinds of things that will help rest your eyes. This is going to be a workout for your eyes, and you want to make sure that you close your eyes, that you roll your eyes up, that you look at long distances before you come back to that computer distance that you're wearing your eyes out with. You can do the Mobius strip, where you simply put pen to paper and draw a sideways figure 8 and follow your finger and watch it draw the figure 8. And that will help you establish some focus. Okay, now on to the written assignment. You'll also hear it called constructive response. The important thing is, which genre is it? Genre will help you determine your tone, your vocabulary, your word count. And these are some things that will be given to you, for instance, the word count. Read the directions carefully to know what's expected of your writing. And I reread them every time I take a test like this. Even if I think I know them by heart, I read them again to make sure I have it exact. I just want to talk a little bit about writers on assignment, because some people think that creative writing is the only kind of writing that should go on, and that other kind of writing is perhaps boring and perhaps stifling of creativity. I just want to remind us that much of what's written, fiction included and nonfiction, follows instructions given in an assignment. And to test this, you can just think about, what kind of genre do you love? What TV shows do you like? What movies? Which magazines? Which websites? They are all follow genre, and they're all written with 2 things in mind: audience and formula. Even Shakespeare wrote with these 2 things in mind, and perhaps especially Shakespeare: audience and formula. Writing is really a craft, and most of the things that are the result of craft take into account audience and formula. And that's not a bad thing, and it doesn't stifle creativity. Pottery, cars, clothing, pens, architecture, they all take into account audience and formula. I'm very glad that my car takes into account formula. I'm glad it has 4 wheels. I'm glad it has a drive shaft. I'm glad it has a steering wheel and a windshield. Okay, so formula can be a very good thing. Writing really is a craft. Even poets, who are the writers most commonly thought of as very creative and exercising great freedom, they are paying attention to audience and formula. So, who's your audience on this exam? The people who are scoring the exam are knowledgeable people who know educational theory and lingo. They know the professional terminology. Therefore, you don't have to explain terminology in one sense, but in another sense, you need to prove that you understand concepts and can apply and describe them to another professional. This is Jennifer Mitchell's mantra. Professional credibility is built every day. The communicator's goal is understand me and believe me. And keep that believe me in mind. You want the person reading it to believe that you are a skilled teacher, that you know what you're doing in the classroom, that you have professional understanding and have the professional language to back that up and prove it. A writer's goal is to achieve understanding and belief in written text which can travel and speak without me. One of the things I like best about the EAS written assignment is it's very much like the kind of thing you could be expected to do in the classroom when you have to write a brief summary of a situation and your recommendation and send that down to the person at the hall who doesn't have time to read all of the background information. It's a very real world task, I think, because it asks you to take what you understand and your opinion, write it down, and it can travel and speak without you there to explain it. You want to preserve professional credibility, write with convincing content and readable style. It's really important to know yourself and yourself growing as a writer. And we should all be growing as a writer. I've been writing a long time in many different genres, and I continue to grow and sometimes stall and then grow again as a writer. Take every opportunity. I really want to encourage you to take every opportunity to practice the craft of writing. Do the very best possible job on writing assignments. And what if you're having a semester without much writing? It's really your responsibility to fit writing into your semester so that you're getting work on your craft. If you have any question how to do that, you should contact me, and I'll be happy to help you set up a series of assignments for yourself that will help you grow as a writer and prepare you for the exam. And I'll show you an example of something you could do. On knowing the test, it's nice to get into a test and it looks familiar. So if you look at the sample and get familiar with that, you should be familiar with what appears before you when you take the test. You don't need to read this right now because we're going to look at it more closely in just a second. This is the EAS exam. And remember that there are 3 EAS constructed responses. They're saying between 150 and 200 words. I'm saying try to hit that 200 words. And the information that's given to you is the class description, or what I call a case study, a teacher's reflection journals, and lesson plans. And what do they 3 have in common? Here's an area, diverse student populations, one of the 3 that are tested in this manner. You'll see these words, something like this, very similar to this, for all 3 areas. And then what's particular about the task, we'll get rid of the things that have in common across the 3. For this particular task, you're going to need to identify one issue related to student diversity that Ms. Finnegan should address in her instructional planning related to this lesson. You'll have to describe one strategy Ms. Finnegan could use to address the issue you identified, and explain why the strategy you described would be effective in facilitating student learning. So you're going to have to apply what you know about student diversity and instructional planning, decide on a strategy this person should use, and explain why the strategy would be effective in facilitating student learning. Here are the keywords, and always look for keywords when you're looking at task descriptions. Identify, describe, and explain. They're the same keywords for each area. There are 5 areas on the EAS, but only 3 of them are tested through writing. The 3 that are tested through writing are the 3 here: diverse student populations, English language learners, students with disabilities, and other special learning needs. So you'll have to identify either an issue, a need, or an aspect, describe a strategy or modification, explain why that strategy or modification will work. And each of these is expected to take about 10 minutes to write. And each of them is expected that you'll take 150 to 200 words to identify, describe, explain. How many words is that? You really should know yourself as a writer. What is it like for you to write, oh, I'm saying 175 because I like the higher word count, to 200 words on a topic in your profession? Think about it. I think about it this way. If I were going to sign up for a 5K race for 2 weeks from now, I really want to know, what is that 5K race like for me? Is that going to be a walk in the park because I run, 30K every week, so it's not a big deal? I often run 5K. Is that something I'm going to be, panting and huffing and hoping I can finish? I want to know before I get to the race, what kind of race is that going to be for me? And I want you to know before you get there and have to write 200 precise words, what that's like for you. What is that experience like? The ALST constructive response is quite different. Here's the information that's given to you. You'll get 2 passages. On the sample, they call them A and B, that express opposing views about an issue. You'll also be given a graphic, for example, a set of pie charts on that same topic. Assignment 1 is to use passages A and B to respond to the following assignment. So here's the 100 to 200 words. I think it should be near 200. Identify which author presents a more compelling argument. Your response must outline the specific claims made in each passage, evaluate the evidence used to support each claim, and include examples from both passages to support your evaluation. So I'm hoping that you're making some connections here and that you're thinking of some classes where you had to use, show what claims were, where you had to back up those claims with evidence, where you had to look at and evaluate an argument. You might have come across that kind of assignment in composition classes or in history classes are great places for that to happen. And notice this 200 words, they expect you to take about 20 minutes to write. And it certainly looks like a more sophisticated, complex 200 words than for the other exam. Let's really think about what they want here. And I would certainly do this with any students, graduate students, college students, 8th graders. The test is using this language. Outline the claims. I might have students who think that means an outline, but they don't mean write out an outline. Here's what they want you to do. They want you to give a brief overview of specific important information. Oh, there's a spelling error. Davidson argues that. That's a nice phrase to use, that someone argues this point. And that's where the claims will come in. But don't use my spelling, but you can use my sentence starter. You want to evaluate the evidence. What does that mean? They actually tell you on the sample. They want to know, is the evidence valid? Is it relevant to the argument? Is it on topic? And is it sufficient? Is there enough evidence there to really help the author support their claims? And when they say include examples from both passages, they really mean it. You want to use examples from each passage. There's no reason to make the mistake of leaving something off. So simply make sure once you've written your response, look back. Did you include examples from both passages? Did you put things in quotes or show otherwise that you've pulled it from the passage? And when I say use quotes, if you used the exact words, you can simply say, Johnson says that, and the specific thing that Johnson says. And to reinforce where you can get this kind of training in critical thinking and writing, composition classes and history classes. So when you're learning about argument, claims, and evidence, really pay attention. This is a game you want to know how to play, and I want you to work hard to understand how this works. And the Writing Center can help you with this. So if you're taking the test in the next month and you're thinking you're a little bit not so a little worried about the argument, claims, and evidence part, you should make an appointment at the Writing Center. Tell them specifically that's what you want to look at, and they will pick a tutor who's skilled at this to help you with it. I promise to tell you a way to work on your content and your writing skills at the same time. And here's what you can do. You can use the test content to gauge what it's like for you to write 175 to 200 words. And you can also evaluate your understanding of the content. So each exam has either objectives or examples. Objectives and examples, for instance, the older CST exam, or performance expectations and indicators. That's the EAS and ALST. And you probably have access to Moodle. And if you do, I've already put the performance expectations and indicators for EAS on Moodle, and I will get the ALST on there quickly. So I recommend select an example or an indicator from the exam you're preparing for, pick out keywords from the text, and write on that topic for several minutes. For instance, on the EAS, under the area English Language Learners, here's one of the objectives that they have, performance expectations. Applied knowledge of research-based instructional strategies, for example, providing scaffolding using authentic tasks, for promoting literacy for English language learners at all stages of literacy development. Well, there is a mouthful. So what are you going to do? Select keywords and phrases, such as research-based instructional strategies. You simply write that down and write 200 words. What do I know about research-based instructional strategies? They give me one here, or a couple, actually two. Do you know any more? Once you've written your 200 words on that, new sheet of paper or new screen on the computer. And scaffolding. What do you know about scaffolding? If you decide to select scaffolding as the approach that a teacher should use when you're answering one of the EAS questions, how would you describe scaffolding? You need to be able to pull that information out of your head and do a good description, a brief description, because you only have 200 words to identify, describe, and explain. So what is scaffolding? Explain why it works. What are authentic tasks? Explain how that works. And then how about stages of literacy? New page, new window. What do you know about stages of literacy development? And if you find that, I know some things, but there's certain things, what's that word? What's that word? Those are places for you to go back and study. If you practice using these keywords, identify, describe, and explain, it will help you evaluate your level of knowledge of the content. And at the same time, you'll work on the craft of writing. If you've done some of these and you'd like me to take a look, you should just send me an email. If you want to take them to the Writing Center and work with an education student there, that's also appropriate. Well, PowerPoint has encountered a problem and needs to close. And it apologizes for the inconvenience, and so do I. So we'll see what happens here.
You all done?
No, it crashed.
Crashed. What happened?
It said PowerPoint needed to close. so I just opened it up again.
Okay. Keep going.
So hopefully we're back, and I just need to zip through, so don't look at the screen. Well, here's an overview of what we've gone through. Oh, we're close. Here we go. Oh, okay. Back to the craft of writing, which is a great place to start up again. As you practice writing on assignment, keep in mind time and word count. And since you'll be taking this on the computer, it will keep the word count for you, which is an advantage of the computer. In craft like sport or music, it really requires time practicing to improve. And as you practice, you'll understand how much time it takes you to write a high quality 200-word passage. If you don't have the time, make the time. Just like exercise, if you can get yourself to find 15 minutes to start, then perhaps tomorrow when you start and do the 15 minutes, you'll do 20 minutes. And again, if you need some help setting some routine for yourself on working on the craft of writing to get ready to prepare, please let me know, because I'll be happy to talk to you about that and some strategies that you can use to make sure you fit time into your day, that you fit craft into your day. Definitely part of time management is to read ahead everything you can and be sure you understand it. I'm getting materials on Moodle so that you can certainly just go to the part under the prep guides that I have available, but I'm also posting the current prep guides and material that I have, support material on Moodle. So you should be able to go there and find it. When you look at the samples, they'll have strong or stronger response. Some of them, the new exams, I think just have a response, which we can assume they think is good enough, if not strong. Really examine the model. How many paragraphs? What job does the first sentence of each paragraph do? Does each sentence refer back to the passage? That's certainly true in the CST. That will be very, very true in the EAS exam, and it will be also true in the ALST for those sessions about evaluating argument. Look, is there an introduction? Is there a conclusion? For the most part, on the EAS and the CST, you don't have time to write an introduction and a conclusion. And you'll have to look at the ALST. You want to write enough of an introduction to set the stage, but not a full-blown introduction, full-blown conclusion. This is not the place to do a 5-paragraph essay. And if you need some help working away from the 5-paragraph essay, let me know and I can help you work on that. Read the materials that are given, the 3 exhibits and the task for EAS, and for the ALST, the 2 passages that put forth the views on a topic and 1 or 2 graphics, and the task. And always reread the task when you take the test, even if you think you know what the task is. For each of the written assignments, it's asking you to take your knowledge, apply it with support. So what you know, applied to the text and passage, supported with details. And we're coming back to understand me, believe me. And I want you to write for the reader who does not have the text or passage in front of them. So you have to give them enough from the text and passage so that they can make sense. And I want you to write to the reader, convince the skeptic. So imagine that there's a New York State educator reading your work, which will be true. And you need to convince that person that you know what you're talking about. And so I think a shortcoming that students have is they always think the teacher or the person scoring the test already knows something. Even if it seems really obvious to you, You're not merely stating the obvious when you state the obvious, but you're setting out an argument for your professional opinion and your conclusion about the need that's reflected in the passage. So first you need to identify, then you need to define in that middle word I'm searching for. Identify, and you know what it is, and explain. Okay. So you need to give reasons for your claim and give specific support for your opinion. So on the EAS, you are in fact telling what conclusion you come to and reasons and evidence. So you in fact are doing an argument, even the very small 200-word little essays. And it's reasons and evidence that make it a professional opinion, not just any old opinion. If you think, I think the teacher should use flashcards, that's any old opinion. If you say, based on this, this, and this that I see in the classroom, I recommend flashcards. Flashcards are this, this, and this, and they will be effective in this situation because, and there's this explanation. It's not just any old opinion, it's a professional opinion. Make sure you refer to the passage. I keep saying that because it's so important. You're a newbie to the field. It's your chance to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. Really make use of the passage. On the CST and the every sentence goes back to the text that you're given. On the EAS, every sentence goes to those 3 identifiers that you need to hit. Take notes, list the things you need to include. They're going to give you the things you need to include. You can make a little chart, check things off, write your answer, and then test your answer against the assignment and make sure you've actually done what they've asked to do. On the CST, again, every sentence refers back to the text. On the EAS, the first paragraph refers to the exhibits, and all 3 paragraphs include your professional knowledge. They do have, especially on the current exams, but also on the new exams, be sure to write about the assigned topic. And they give you that caution because people tend to wander away. Don't wander away and keep on the topic. Make sure that you use all the information that's given to you. Make sure you use those graphics, those charts. These are good things to teach your own students, whether they're 2nd graders, 8th graders, 12th graders, or college students. Look everywhere in the directions in the assignment and make use of all the information you're given. And be sure to write about the assigned topic. Use the assignment as a checklist to make sure that you hit each thing that they ask you to do. Double check it. On some of the exams, I'd recommend that you number the things you have to include and look for them in your answer. You want to mimic the test language. Maybe you've been trained to call something a deficiency, but on the test they call it a need, and then you're going to call it a need. The reason you're going to do this, you want to make it really easy for the person scoring your exam to line up your answer with the requirement. So they're looking for you to identify a need. If you call it a need, there it is. If you call it a deficiency, it takes them another X second to find it. That's a second where they could not find it. So make sure that you mimic the test language. They're giving you really the structure. And your answer structure for the EAS is first you identify a need, then you describe a strategy or modification, and then you explain why the strategy or modification you describe will work. That's why this one will only take you 10 minutes because it's laid right out. You need to do this, this, and this. It's very straightforward. If you have the knowledge about, if you have the professional knowledge to identify the need and to decide on a strategy and explain why it works, then this question will be a gift. And just a reminder that teachers really are professional communicators. I remember when I was in high school, I was very resentful. I had to take a speech class because I said, I am never going to speak in front of a group. Well, as a teacher, you speak in front of a group, you also write in front of a group. Everything you send out really is an advertisement for your competence, whether it's a letter applying for a job or it's a note home to the parent to remind them to have their students wear sweaters on cold days. Everything's an advertisement for your competence. It needs to be clear, effective, and credible. Here's the structure for the ALST. For assignment 1, you need to use both passages. Assignment 2, these are the short ones, use one passage and the graphic. And assignment 3, you'll use both passages and the graphic. So perhaps you can see here now I say assignment 1 and 2, the two short ones, will help you build up to 3 because you'll really know both passages and the graphic well, and you'll know how you can use them in writing by the time you get to that longer 600-word passage. And the things I'm showing you here, the answer structure, the word count, they're predictions that I'm making based on past exams and samples. And certainly for the CST, I've gotten lots of feedback that all the information I give out is exactly what they see. And I'm starting to get information about the EAS and ALST that in fact, yes, this is what it looks like. So be prepared that it will look like the sample, and also be prepared it might be a little bit different from the sample so you don't get thrown. You need to read the directions on the exam carefully. You should know the sample very well, so if there are any differences, you'll see them and pick them out. If it's just the same, after careful reading, you'll know they're just the same. When you compose, be super logical and clear. You want to be completely obvious in every sentence. So if someone says, well, yeah, after every sentence, that's a very good sign. It needs to be completely obvious. You really want to follow your plan. You want to stay focused on the topic. You can keep looking back to the topic. Am I going where I'm supposed to go? Am I where I'm supposed to be? That's something that you can judge continually during the exam to make sure you're on the topic. When you're stating a need, state it in very clear terms and cite your evidence from the text clearly and in detail. And watch your word count. Of course, the computer will watch it for you and tally it up for you. And aim for the high end. If you have finished one of the written assignments for the EAS and it's 125 words, I read it very carefully using the assignment has the judgment and make sure that in fact you've answered it very well, because you're leaving 75 words out of the mix that in fact could perhaps help you improve. So measure your answer sentence by sentence. Is it on topic? Is it on task? And at this point, certainly EAS should look very familiar to you. You're going to identify a need, define an appropriate strategy, explain why the strategy or modification would work. And on the ALST, you're going to evaluate an argument, interpret a graphic, and you're going to develop your own argument. Make sure everything that you've been asked to do is in your answer. And reread the question, reread your answer, and make sure they're a perfect match. You can edit as needed, expand and add details, improve your word choice. Time, definitely. So task time is really important. And here's where know yourself is really useful. You want to know how much time it takes you to write a detailed response of the expected length. About how long does it take you to write a solid, on-topic, 600-word written response? And do you check time as you take a test? You will need to for this one, I suspect, just to assure yourself. And how good are your second guesses on multiple choice? I'm a very good second guesser. Most people are not, and I second guess very seldom. So know yourself, and when you get in there, follow what you know about yourself. If you're a miserable second guesser, just don't second guess. And here's an aspect of time that's crucial. Make a timeline from today through your test day and make a plan. What are you going to read? What are you going to write? Write in notes, review, rest, and nutrition schedule. Review tends to be the thing we all think about. Review and study, review and study. Rest for days before your exam is very important, and nutrition is very important. Rest and nutrition are things that build up over time and deteriorate quickly in just a few days. So make sure you're getting enough rest. Make sure that you're eating well. Make sure you stay hydrated. Lots of people who have to travel for exams are traveling a day ahead of time to make sure that they get good rest. That's a great strategy. And benefits of working on your writing. I just can't resist putting in a pitch for writing. But I seem to have flown by it. Working on your writing will really help you think things through. And I hope I have shown you that working on your writing will help you evaluate your current knowledge. Wow, that was interesting. Huh. Here are some resources to help you improve your writing. The College Writing Center has a self-editing guide. You can contact me either on the phone or through email. It's watsonea@potsdam.edu. You can work with the College Writing Center and certainly take classes if you have time. Wow. Well, I'm not sure what you're seeing, but I'm seeing strange things. But we are at the finish, and I do want to say that if you have any feedback, I would love to have it. Positive, negative, in between. If you have suggestions for other ways to reach students, please let me know. And I very much appreciate that you've taken the time to be here today. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I am done, but it sort of bombed out at the end. So I don't know if people have questions or not.
If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to type them in the screen here, and we'll be able to answer them for you. Thanks for sticking through our technology issues today. We'll just kind of leave this on here. I'm going to go ahead and stop